to That's Absurd, Please Elaborate. I am Trace.
And I'm Julian.
On this episode, we're going to talk about more silly questions with well-researched answers, just like we do on every episode.
Yeah, you can expect the same high standard of research. I was not up at 7:30 this morning furiously typing into a Google Doc to make sure I understood everything.
It's going to be good, though.
It wasn't hasty in any way.
I mean, to be honest, I've known Julian for 10 years, and this is how he does all of his research, and, you know, sometimes that's amazing.
Literally never had a single complaint that I've taken seriously.
He usually puts in about 500% more jokes than we would allow him to air.
The balance of research to jokes is always in need of refinement.
I mean, to be honest, the balance of research to jokes is usually 1-to-1.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say that's what they pay me for, but I haven't gotten paid.
Any science news that you want to start with? Something that has been, stuck in your craw this week?
You actually just mentioned a story that you're interested. So why don't you share your science news that's caught your eye?
I'm going to start with a question then. Julian, is soy milk?
Ooh.
Is almond milk?
No.
Is any other kind of not mammary milk?
No.
Well, you're wrong according to the Food and Drug Administration because they said it can be milk. Even though, quote, an almond doesn't lactate. According to FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb, he said, if you look at our standard of identity, there is a reference somewhere in the standard of identity to a lactating animal. And an almond doesn't lactate. I will confess.
It really sounds like he tried. And he's like, I did my best, and I couldn't get it.
However, so this is all coming from almond milks, soy milks. They're cutting into the dairy kind of farmers or dairy lobby, really. Their money. And because of that, the dairy producers sued the creators of these things and saying, you're not giving people milk, you're giving people, which I would agree, essentially a juice, right? It's water mixed with the extractions that you get from various nuts and other vegetables. And I am a oat milk consumer. I like oat milk. I don't like it for everything, but I like it for some things. And I see why it would be weird to call it milk, because milk comes from mammaries in mammals.
Yeah, and you've got to have lactose, right? Like, that's not the sugar in almonds or oats, right? Like it is in it that mammals make. It's probably, what is it, like fructose or sucrose or something.
Yeah, I'm sure it depends on the product.
Yeah.
So the FDA acknowledged that by its own definition of milk, in this debate the milk community has been having internally, the essentially milk producers showed up and be like, you can't call that milk. We make milk, not you.
Yeah.
And the nut people were like, cool, man, we'll figure this out in court. And the FDA acknowledged that by its own definition of milk, plant-based milk cannot be called milk. However, because they're not made from the lacteal secretion of cows, but the regulator argued that plant-based milks they're just sold as milk, and they're called plant-based milk. They're milk alternatives, and though they use the term milk, they aren't saying that they're from cows or mammals in any way, and in fact, they're pretty clear about where they are coming from, using terms like soy, pea,
it is in the name,
oat,
yeah,
almond. They're not like, we're selling you milk. They're like, we're selling almond milk, and because of that distinction, apparently, the FDA is like, sorry, milk people, you're gonna have to start calling yourself also milk. Maybe you should be more clear. They didn't say this, I'm saying. Maybe you should be more clear. You're selling cow's milk.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised, though, if they put, like, a regulation saying, okay, you can be in the dairy aisle or whatever, but you've got to put, like, almond milk substitute or whatever. There's all these minutiae around food labelings. Like, if you don't have enough, like, strawberries in your ice cream, for example, you can't say it's strawberry ice cream. You have to say it's strawberry flavored ice cream.
Yeah, good point. I don't think this is milk-flavored product, though. Although, then it thinks of, like, Velveeta, which isn't really cheese. It's a cheese product, like a cultured cheese product. So, yeah, maybe. Right now, according to, this is mostly being pulled from arstechnica.com, by the way. Plant-based milk alternatives fall into a distinct food category from milk, it says, which so far lacks its own, quote, standard of identity.
Yeah.
So the regulations do stipulate that they would be considered a non-standardized food, and so they have to bear a common or usual name. They have to be told to the consumer, sold to them as something that'd be like, well, what is this like?
Yeah.
So Velveeta, to use an example that I don't know if this is true, but they wouldn't be able to just show up and be like, we're orange food. You'd have to say like, this is like cheese. We're
cheese-like. Velveeta cheese-like.
It's cheese-ish.
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 Praise cheese-ish. Yeah, I get that makes sense. I think definitely more of it is coming from the milk industry seeing a threat, much the same way that the meat industry is looking at these plant-based meat-like products, right? Like the Beyond and Impossible meats. And they're making a big stink about the regulations. It's like, oh, you can't be called meat and you can't be in the meat section because they don't want people doing their grocery runs to see like the alternative and be like, oh, when it's like right next to the meat. And like pick that instead. Yeah. There's definitely more of a financial incentive to be pedantic than it is just because like, oh, they care about the rules so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I think it would be amazing if there was a grocery store that was just like was organized by how you organize food on a plate or like at a restaurant, and they're just like primary or like mains, and that's where all of the like meats and main things are, and then there's just like secondaries or whatever, and like they have all these side dishes, and that's where all the vegetables are. Maybe not all, some could be primaries. It'd be funny because they're essentially saying you can't be in the meat section because that's the grocery store. The grocery store calls it meat, and it's like, well, but they don't really mean meat, do
right?
They mean proteins. They mean like the primary thing on your plate.
Yeah, because when you go to a restaurant and you order a plant-based burger, it's in the burger section, right? It's always like the one vegetarian thing in a sea of meat products that they're like, also, if you're here and you're a vegetarian, like this is where you're gonna look for the garden burger or the plant-based burger. This reminds me of, that metaphor, right? And I think I'll phrase it like this. Inside every person, there are two wolves. One wolf that is pedantic and wants everything to be exactly right, and another wolf that just goes, come on. Come on. And which wolf wins, right? The one you feed oat milk to.
I think they're obligate carnivores.
Come on. God.
Julian, my question was asked by you.
Me, yeah. It was my question that you had to research. And this actually came up like a last-minute thought as I was headed out the door after the last pod we recorded. And I was like, what if people couldn't lie? Like, is there a way to make that possible? And even if it wasn't possible, if that were the case, like, what would the consequences be? Yeah, and I just thought it was fascinating. Like, people lie in all sorts of big and small ways every single day, I think.
Yeah.
And there's also the definition of a lie. Like, do you consider kind of hiding your true emotions to be a lie? I don't know. Stuff like that, right? And so, depending on how you slice it, like, many of these things I feel like are very important skills that you need just to navigate being around other humans. And you lit up as soon as I mentioned this, and you were like, oh, I know something about this. That's my next question I want to tackle. So with all that said, take it away.
The question as you wrote it was, can we make it impossible to lie? And I really love the word impossible. Like, I took that to mean not only can you not lie in a casual situation, but it's impossible. Like there's no lies anywhere in human society. It cannot be done. So in one of many speeches that Dumbledore gave, he wrote, the act of lying is not only deceiving others, but we're also deceiving ourselves.
Oh.
So lying is built in, not just in our society, but in societies across our planet. Insects can lie, birds lie, other mammals, primates, they all lie.
Are you telling me the birds and the bees do it?
I want to tell you a story about a high-ranking official in the precursor to the EU, the Europe Economic Community. Okay.
Oh, this sounds good.
Yeah, he's going to be a real crazy guy.
You're revving me up now.
When you think of economics and politics and policy, you think, whoa, so exciting.
Ooh,
revs my engine.
Hot for this info right now.
It revs my 2-cylinder engine because it's Europe and we have a lot of regulation. Anyway, he negotiated as part of his job, but he had this rare form of epilepsy. I'm not making this up. If he lied ever, he would pass out.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. He would be talking to somebody and they'd be like, so do you think that we could maybe make this deal? And he's like, I think we need a little.
He's like the character from Knives Out, right? Who every time she lies, she vomits.
I think that, maybe she was inspired by this.
Oh my,
very
this
incredible
is insane.
Turns out he had a tumor that was pressing on parts of essentially his like fear center in his brain, the amygdala, and it also controls your emotions, a variety of other things. So he had the tumor removed because he couldn't lie, and so if he couldn't lie during a negotiation, you can't show up and be like, I'm gonna pay you $10, and you're like, but I want 12, and you're like, well, I can't pay you 12 even if you didn't pass out. Like that doesn't work. So he couldn't do his job.
I bet he got invited to so many poker nights.
They're like, invite Hans. He's the best to play poker.
Hans, we clean that guy out every single time.
So our society is built on lies, and so he couldn't even do his job if he couldn't lie. And it turns out the prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of our brain, it helps us lie. And it's connected to a lot of other regions and helps regulate our emotions, our working memory, our cognitive functioning, and our thoughts. And through that, we can learn how lying works, which we're going to come back to in a bit. But I want to ask you, what do you think is harder, lying or honesty?
Oh, I feel the urge to lie here and say lying, but it's so easy to lie and fun.
Yeah, no, it's definitely lying harder.
Oh, okay.
Lying is harder in the brain.
Well, maybe for you.
Sure.
I'm real good at it. I'm really practiced.
So in 2001, there was an fMRI study. fMRI is when they put you in that big machine that kind of makes a lot of noise and has a big magnet, and they check where blood flow moves through your brain, right? And so they made people lay in the machine and lie. They laid and lied at the same time. Mm-hmm. It was very complicated.
Lay lies.
They lay lied. And they literally had asked them yes or no questions about their daily routine. And the color of the text on the screen that they were looking at told the patient whether they should lie about it. They'd had surveys done with the researchers, so the researchers knew what was the truth or not. But the point is, they needed to think about a lie.
Okay.
So the lies took more time to formulate, required the prefrontal cortex to do more work than just answering truthfully. And you'd think that if something is harder, right, we would want to do it less. Requires more energy, more resources. So why the heck would we even want to lie?
Ooh.
What would be the benefit from like an evolutionary perspective?
Are you asking me, or is this rhetorical?
It's rhetorical, but if you have a thought, I'd like to
I don't know.
hear.
I'm wondering if like the same way that if you like solve a puzzle or like get a question right, if you come up with like a really good lie, I wonder if you get like a dopamine hit and your brain's like, good job lying, so good at that, buddy. And then you keep doing it, you get carried away, maybe you tell a bit too many lies, before you know it, you're a member of Congress.
Hey, maybe. And I think that you're probably right, that there's definitely a benefit to lying, right?
Right.
Lying about your breakfast, not a lot of evolutionary pressure there, lying about your daily routine. But another fMRI experiment in 2009 invited people, this is how they put it out to the public. We need people with paranormal abilities for this study.
Huh.
That's not what it was actually about. They lied. They lied to the public.
To the public.
To get people to come in.
Because they knew.
Because they knew.
They knew you don't have paranormal abilities.
Yeah.
I see. And so they're trying to get all the people who are like, yes, I'm a psychic.
Right. Because the whole point of the experiment was to guess coin tosses. And if you got them right, you got money.
Oh. And so you'd think these paranormal people would get it right. At least more than like the approximate 50% of the time that anybody should get.
That's right.
Math being what it is.
So in the end, you're totally right. The people who were always honest about their guesses, they got about 50% right. Just about. But here's the clincher. They had to guess in advance. So they would say, the next 10 coin tosses, how many are going to be heads? How many are going to be tails? Mm-hmm. The number you get right, you get $7 for every correct guess. That's not an insignificant amount of money as it adds up. The thing is, the researchers would ask them if they guessed it right. So they would have them write it all down, and then they would say to the person who's in an fMRI machine, again, they're scanning their brain, and they would say, how many did you get right?
Right, and these psychics, quote unquote, would be like, all of them.
Or I got like
I
7.
imagine some of them, right, you must be like, well, I got 1 or 2 wrong, The flowing energy from the coin was interfered with by a 5G cell tower nearby.
Totally. Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Annoying.
Yeah, got to turn that off for my psychic abilities to function.
Right. So they could lie about their guesses, they could make money, and they watched their brains working really hard to do that. And obviously the researchers knew the correct answers and knew when they were lying and knew what was happening.
I'm dying for the reveal of what the researchers told them about how right they were.
So it's funny because the people who are lying would also have to work hard to lie, but then work even harder the more they lied to keep track of their lies and also throw in some truths so that they wouldn't feel like, oh, well, I got 7 again.
I believe it was also Dumbledore who said, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive." Unquote. Albus Dumbledore.
Yeah, perfect. Yes. So the liars actually, they didn't like tell them, hey, what's up? This is what happened. But some of the liars felt bad and went to the researchers afterward and told them that they had lied.
No.
Yeah.
Wait, how much money were these people given? Like $1? Or...
$7 for every correct guess.
That's it?
But if you think of 10, I don't know how many coin tosses they had to guess, but if you guessed, 70 right, like that's not a small amount of money.
And I'm just thinking like, yeah, I'm not a psychologist, but I'm wondering if it's a higher amount of money that they walked away with, if they're more likely to feel bad and go back and be like, actually, I'm a big fraud.
There is a big part of it's called, so in psychology, behavioral psychology at least, there's this thing called a token economy. It's something that we learned about in school, and it's where you want to, give somebody an M&M if they do well or whatever. You don't want it to be 5 M&Ms because then it'll incentivize them to lie.
Right.
1 M&M is just enough reward to be like, okay, I'm going to do this straight and it's going to work.
Yeah.
And so I think $7 they must have landed on for some reason.
Yeah.
It's not 10 because 10 is like, that's a lot. Maybe that's going to encourage them to lie.
Yeah.
Maybe they should have gone the Walmart method where it was actually like $6.83 or whatever. So it's like... But anyway, so when there's a reward involved, it's not just that you worked hard. The liar got resources that the honest person didn't. So this was all to get to why lying is evolutionarily beneficial.
Right.
If I can lie, if that's an option, I might get a resource that the honest person or animal might not get.
I'm thinking even down to like, you mentioned like insects do it. And now I'm thinking of the roaches that my wife feeds her bearded dragon. And these roaches, we've noticed they have a very distinct behavior all the time, which is if they're flipped over on their back, they just stop moving. They'll be kicking around and stuff trying to escape you. As soon as they're on their back, they just stop. And you'd think like maybe they would try and roll over and keep running away. But no, they're playing dead, which is lying.
Right.
They lied to us. But something in that roach's wiring over, evolutionary eons has made it so they're more likely to survive if some other animal thinks like, oh, it's dead, gross, it's probably gonna make me sick, I don't want to eat it, and like moves on to something else.
Yeah.
This
is a type of lie called deception, very common in the natural world. And I actually had a question for you that I was going to follow up with that. And so there are insects like spiders, which isn't an insect but arachnid.
Yeah,
so
arachnid, yeah.
An arachnid that gives off pheromones, and it mimics the mating pheromones of moths. Ooh. And they do this on purpose so they can catch the moth and eat it. Would you consider that lying?
Yes.
Okay, that's great.
The moth thought it was gonna get some, and then it got eaten.
It got some, but
instead
of being like
venom,
I got some. It's more like action movie, like get some.
Like an 8-legged, one machine gun in each leg. Rambo gets some.
Wow.
Why is there not Spider Rambo?
Spider Rambo.
Put a pin in that. We'll come back to that later. Band name. Another band name.
Where spiders are king. One man, spider, stands on his hind legs above all. Spider Rambo. Yeah.
Web of deception.
Web of deception. Good. I like it. Coming this summer. So there are lots of examples of animals lying. And I actually had a little more, I wanted to answer the question as best I could. So I had a little more restrictive idea of what lying was. Mm-hmm. So impossible to lie. I didn't include deception because little deceptions, then insects wouldn't exist and that wouldn't be great. So I wanted to give them the option. But there's in the Kalahari Desert, which is Namibia, Botswana, and South Africa, there's a bird called the fork-tailed drongo.
Yes, of course.
It's a great name. And it hangs out and it warns other drongos that predators are coming with an alarm call. Oh. So I don't know what it sounds like. Whatever it is.
Now we're going to get bird Twitter mad at us.
Sorry, bird Twitter.
Sorry, bird Twitter.
Please send us all the recordings of what this sounds like. And it warns the drongos, but it also ends up warning other animals like meerkats because they hear the drongo and they're like, yo, what's up? There's something coming. I heard it. Let's, get out of here. Mm-hmm. So the meerkats all like, okay, the drongo just did something. We all got to run. Whatever they're doing, they drop and run.
Right.
That includes when they have something delicious that drongos also eat. So it turns out biologists determined 25% of drongo food intake is from lying because they would do the alarm call when there was no predator because they saw the meerkat had something they wanted. The meerkat would run away. They would eat the food.
Just, wow.
I know.
That's like if I had a pizza walking down the street and you ran up to me and you were like, Julian, there's a murder.
Yeah.
There's a crazy murderer who's going to get you. Quick, give me the pizza and get out of here. And I was like, thank you, Trace. You're the best friend a guy could have.
And then you run away and I eat your
then you
pizza.
just eat the pizza.
Yeah.
I hope you get eaten by a hawk.
Hey, I didn't actually do that.
Well, I'm mad at this fictional version of you that I've imagined now.
So there's actually a whole corner of study about how animals communicate with each other. Chimpanzees lie, as we know. There was this really cool study. 2 chimps, one was more dominant, one was more subordinate. They're in this huge indoor-outdoor enclosure, and the subordinate was given the heads up as to where a tasty food item was being hidden in the outdoor enclosure, and the dominant one didn't know what was up. Oh. Yeah, that's right. Sowing a little bit of discord. Love it. So then we would release both the chimps, and the sub would be like, I know where that banana is. It was literally banana. I know where that banana is.
It's such a stereotype.
It really was. But when the chimps would go out into the area, the sub would be like, I'm not even going to walk toward the banana. I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going to do anything because I know where it is. And if I look at it, the dom will know where it is and go for it and doesn't want to give it away.
So it's like, why is Carl the chimp walking sideways all of a sudden?
They'd be like, I don't know.
I just decided to walk like this weird crab walk.
Yeah, the chimp version of that. So even chimps will do this kind of lying in this weird, interesting way to get resources. In a second experiment where they had a banana and a cucumber also good, but not as good as a banana for a chimp. They had this thing where a chimp they call it recruiting. You look at the other chimp for like 5 seconds. You're just like, sup. And then they follow each other. And so,
like, why is Carl the chimp staring at me?
Right.
What is he? What is he?
He wants me.
Wait a minute.
He wants me to come with him because he's got something. So then the sub would take the dom to where the cucumber was and be like, check this food out. Look at this food. I found it. I got it for you.
I did good, boss.
That's so good. It's so good. And then while the dom was all like, there's a cucumber around here. I'm going to find it. The sub would book it over to the banana and eat it real fast.
So he creates a diversion?
Yes.
That's amazing.
I know. Oh,
what?
It's awesome.
They're just like us.
Yes. And humans.
Oh my God, look over there.
Yeah. And then they it's great.
And then you get the best of everything because then Boss Chimp is like, you did real good, Carl. You're my favorite second chimp.
And you're like, thanks, boss. What's in your mouth? Nothing.
Just shove a whole banana in your mouth? You
No,
didn't even peel it first?
You're fine. So now we've got birds. We got mammals, cuttlefish also lie and have been observed lying.
I know about this, but you tell me anyway because I love this.
So cuttlefish who want to mate, there's a more not great, this is common in the animal kingdom, but also, not great. The female cuttlefish would swim away, so he camouflaged. So cuttlefish have these really cool cells on their skin where they can change colors and shapes and do all sorts of amazing things. They can even strobe where it's like constantly moving. Cuttlefish are incredible. So he camouflaged so he looked like the ground. He waited a little bit. Then he grabbed the female fish and like had his way with her.
Oh, no.
Without her consent.
That's not the example I had seen in a nature documentary. That's
not
way
great.
More sad.
But he lied, so he camouflaged himself, even though he knew that mate didn't want to mate with him.
Right. See, I had seen cuttlefish where there's basically like, a huge imposing male, and his strategy for mating is just like keeping all the other males away by being big and scary. And then he's got like a little female cuttlefish like kind of hanging out underneath him. And another male cuttlefish comes along but like mimics the body language of the female.
Yep.
And so the big male's like, there's another lady trying to join we'll have a little menage a trois over here. We'll just be a crazy arm and tentacle, like mishmash. Awesome. Every male cuttlefish's fantasy. Disgusting. And meanwhile, the smaller male kind of sneaks in, and then underneath him, and I swear it was like a David Attenborough documentary, and David Attenborough's getting all horny for it. He's
Do your best, David Attenborough.
The female cuttlefish finds this new interloper brave and decides that she will mate with him as well. That was not a very good David Attenborough.
You know what? I wasn't going to say anything. I wasn't going to say anything.
He's so singular as a person, and I can't do it. But
nobody can, really. Yes, that was another example that I found. Essentially, like, you got a FMM situation going. The middle, they actually found one observation where the middle, like if you think of it in that order, FMM, the middle M signaled, hey, to the left side of him where the F was, and then signaled, hey, get out of here, to the male side.
Yeah.
And literally split their body so that they wwere signaling different things on different sides of their own body at the same time.
Yeah.
And I did it as like, on the female side, he was like, hey.
Some ladies.
And on the male side, he was Bugs Bunny in a dress, batting his eyes. Like, I'm not a female, but you know that what's going on.
I've seen those. And it's cool. Like, right down the middle of their body, they're sending, like, those opposite
It's incredible.
signals. It's so cool.
So these are examples of lying and how you can use lying in nature to get resources, to get mates, to do things that you couldn't do without lying. So if we made it impossible to lie, so many things in nature would be broken.
Yeah.
Like the rules would be so hard to follow.
Yes.
If it were impossible. Again, this is like, some impossible switch is flipped and lying is now, the movie Liar, Liar, but for every animal and every organism.
Right.
That said,
everybody's fifth birthday, their kid's fifth birthday, they all wish we couldn't lie. And the world crumbles.
So animals typically, they deceive, they lie. The cuttlefish knows it's deceiving its mates and its rivals. But it's committing a lie of a specific type. It's deception, but it also could be considered a lie of omission. Right? It's omitting details of its own sexuality, its own interest in mating. The drongo, you might argue, is committing a lie of commission because it knows what it's doing, but it still does it anyway. And so depending on the blog you might read, there could be between, a handful and 10 different types of lies. Usually these are blogs, so I didn't actually find anything in the scientific research that corroborated, like, ooh, we've categorized and taxonomized every type of lie. It's instead on these, like, what I call, like, 3-word websites, like, that's just natural.biz, or, like, all about whatever, GMOs or whatever, They're not scholarly, they're just, like, blogs that people have that. But in a paper from Trinity College in Ireland, they broke it down into 3 different lies. So there's outright lies, which is just a lie, a blatant, totally false thing.
Yeah, I've never done that.
I've never.
That was an example.
There's exaggerations, which are overstatements of the truth. You want an example?
I mean, I lie like that, but practically never.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I was going to say, like, yeah, I'm 6'4".
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like...
This is a podcast. Nobody's going to know.
Right. Nobody knows.
Yeah. Which, shorty. I'm 6'12".
Oh, God. 6'12". Wow.
Yeah.
You really... the units there are really confusing. There's also subtle lies, purposeful omissions of details. Do you have an example of that?
This is getting really difficult for me.
It is. This was the hardest one to come up with. An example. Yeah. I also came up with examples for each of these, so I'm glad that you spontaneously did, because this one took me forever to come up with a good example. This is a hard one.
I mean, contextually, it's easy, right? It's like, if you don't bring it up, I'm just not going to say it, and therefore I'm not going to lie, right?
Yeah. It's like, I'm telling you a half-truth,
Yeah.
No, I didn't eat your French fries, but I did eat your burger. So you just leave out the latter part.
Exactly.
So I have some examples here with one of the most bloviating, pontificating equivocators of our age, Mr. Donald Trump. So an outright lie would, I won 2016. He didn't.
He did not.
Obama left a bare cupboard of ventilators after he left office. But he didn't. That would be an exaggeration lie. There weren't very many. There's 17,000 relative to the whole country, but we didn't know if we would need for the whole country.
Right.
So definitely not 0. And then subtle lie, this was the hardest one to think about, but it's like my book, The Art of the Deal, which he didn't write, but he did commission, so it's technically his book, but he didn't really write it, so he talks about it as if it's like his knowledge, but it was ghostwritten. And so it gets, the subtle lies are the ones that really get you. And so within those, there are the tactics of lying, like a palter, using a truthful statement to lead a listener to a false conclusion. So, for example, there's a meme that New York teachers who refused COVID vaccination had their info sent to the FBI. Which is actually true, but it's also a lie called a palter because background checks are done on New York teachers. So all teacher info is sent to the FBI sometimes. Has nothing to do with whether they were COVID
It's presenting
vaccinated.
true but unrelated facts and counting on you to make a connection between them.
Correct, which probably would be good if we couldn't lie that way. If we had that, like, it was impossible to palter, I would thumbs up that.
I think paltering might be now that I know a name for it, the thing that makes me the most insane because it's such a pain to argue against because you have to rely on that nuance of, yes, what you are saying is technically true. No, it is not accurate.
Yes.
It's not what you think.
It's extremely common today, especially in people who are famous in certain political circles for arguing. We're not going to call out any specific people, but
they know who they are.
They know who they are, and
palterers.
They don't listen to this podcast.
Probably not, no. I don't think we're their target. They're our target demo.
Also, none of these have been released yet, so
they definitely haven't listened. And frankly, how dare they?
Lies of omission. That's another type of lie. It's that leave out a detail that makes it a lie. Like, I really like you. I left out don't. See, I don't really like you, really. Oh. And then I really like you. I left out that detail.
You really hurt my feelings right there for a minute.
I like to think of the blank papers in those stacks of folders in the press room.
Oh, yeah.
When Trump was like, look at my trust. It's so complicated.
So
and
many
it was literally
papers.
just blank paper. He left out the detail that this is not it.
There's nothing in these. It's just reams that we got from Office Max.
You could also argue that would be a lie of commission, which we just mentioned, which is like but most people, interestingly, with commission, which is just straight up lying. I know I'm lying, and I'm lying to you on purpose. It's not I'm leaving out details. I'm just lying to you. So this is common when Congress members or other leaders are caught up in scandals. So a sex scandal. Oh, that wasn't me. I was hacked. It's a hoax. Like, I didn't mean to release
I did not have sex with that woman.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Most people actually don't believe those, interestingly. Lies of commission were pretty good at spotting. Paltering and lies of omission are much harder to counter because it takes a lot more mental effort for us to get through them.
Yeah.
There's also then another lying tactic, the white lie. Very common, little lies, social lies, and humans do this because it helps grease the social wheels, and we do it all the time. Do I look fat in this? No, of course, you look amazing. A really good example is something like a really good friend, gets off stage, they've already done their performance, and they say, how did I do?
Oh, yeah. And you're like, you were great up
there.
It
doesn't matter how they did.
Terrible.
If they were bad, you tell them they were good.
Yeah.
If they were fine, you tell them that they were great. If if they were good, you also tell them they were good.
Yeah.
But
but then you have to go, and I'm not just saying that.
I'm not just saying that.
Like I do to other people when I see their live shows. And then hopefully they're not standing next to you. And then, because then you have to turn and be like, no, but you're great too.
Yeah.
So good.
Again, we're not the only thing in the universe that does this, or in our little globe that does this.
Just want to throw out there too, by the way, you can look fat and good.
Yeah.
In something.
That's totally
throw
true.
that out there.
Do I look fat in this? Yeah, girl.
Yeah,
you
and
look
you look
amazing.
Good. I'm just going to put that out there in the universe.
Hell yeah. Nice. So most humans learn to lie around age 5. We start to experiment with what we can get away with. We get how the world works a little bit, and so we start to lie. Most humans, just across the board, tell between 2 and 4 lies a day. Depends on the study.
Not me, though.
No, you're lying literally like how many minutes? How many minutes we got?
Yeah, per day is too long of a time span.
You're really going to throw off all the numbers.
It's not really a practical measurement.
In the Journal of Economic Psychology, they experimented with 400 people under the age of 18, and they found that lies decrease with age. But in another study, Acta Psychologica, they looked at over 1,000 people aged 6 to 77 and found that lies peaked when people were between 18 and 29. That's when we lie the most, and also when our lies are the most successful because we're the best at it. After that, like when you get into your 30s and 40s, you lie less and less. People over 60 are actually almost as honest number of lies per day as like children because they just don't lie as much. All this data is self-reported, I just want to say.
To me, that's fascinating, and I'm imagining the reason people are lying in what I would also consider their prime, like getting it on years, if there's a connection there. And then also part of me wonders if we lie less as we age because like the people around us have been lied to so much and they are better at detecting like a lie. It's just throwing stuff out there because it's just an interesting follow-up.
No, I totally agree. I think when you're in your prime kind of mating age, you're the cuttlefish. You're out there trying to lie in order to get mates. As best as you can. You need those resources.
But do it consensually. Make sure that...
Lie consensually, please. Make sure you get consent before disguising yourself as a wall and just jumping out.
Don't do that.
That's a crime.
We do not condone that.
Not 0%. Negative percent.
Yeah.
Another national survey focused on people who told the number of lies in a 24-hour period, had them track them. And it turns out, Julian, you're totally right. Almost half of all the lies in the world that are being told are told by only 5% of the people.
Oh, yeah?
According to, again, self-reported data. 60% of subjects reported telling no lies at all in a 24-hour period. Isn't that crazy? The top 1%?
I don't believe them.
They're telling like 15 lies a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is... We need some redistribution of lies here.
Right? Gotta get that out
there. They're hoarding all the lies. The top 1%.
15 lies a day. I only get one at my job.
Some people don't even get to lie for an entire month.
Wow. Terrible. How do they live? So the reason I wanted this question is because if you made it impossible to lie, you would hate it. You'd be so unhappy.
Yeah.
And we know this because there was a family who raised their kids to be radically honest. And there's a book about it called To Be Honest. It's by a guy named Michael Levitin. He's a musician in New York. And his dad would go into a store and he would say, to a salesman, and he would say to his kid, watch this. I'm going to tell him exactly how much I want to spend, and the salesman's going to tell me to spend more money than that. But I'm telling the truth, remember. This dad is like, I'm radically honest. Everything I say is truthful. So as a kid, Michael would look up to his dad and be like, this is a magic trick. Every time my dad says exactly what he wants to spend, I'm going to spend $10, the salesman would show him something more expensive. But in reality, that's how our society is built.
Right. They assume you're lowballing and they're going to highball and you meet somewhere in the middle.
That's right. So nobody in their family was allowed to answer the question, how are you? With things like fine or good. You had to answer, how are you? And
I think that's a good policy.
I agree. I thought that was kind of nice. But it was confusing for him as a kid to talk to adults who didn't lie or didn't know that you weren't lying. So he would fall down on the playground and a teacher would come over and be like, you're so brave. You'll be okay. And he would tell them, I'm not brave. I just got hurt. I'm not debilitated. That's just life.
I didn't do anything special. I fell off the monkey bars.
I fell. I messed up. My hands were sweaty. I shouldn't have done that. And the teacher would be very confused and not know what to do. And as an adult, imagine, again, 18 to 29, you're in your mating phase.
Right.
And you tell them in the first 30 minutes at coffee, you're like, well, I only have $43 in the bank,
Yeah.
Or like, I'm really into something sexually. These are my kinks, Like if it comes up, you're going to be honest and you're not going to hold anything back and you're just going to tell everything.
So I have to know, did he actually meet anybody and have a long-term relationship at this stage in his life?
Great question. He did. In the book, they were named Eve, and they were super into each other because she came from a family where everything was talked indirectly. Nobody talked about how they were feeling. The example he gave in the book was your mom would say, hey, I thought Sharon wanted to watch that movie, I heard, but really mom wanted to watch the movie. Yeah. And so everything being indirect, she really was drawn to Michael. And the problem is, though, that after a few years, it was exciting at first. Everybody was honest. It was so interesting. But what happens is you end up with these little emotional things that are like little barbs. You end up with all these little problems where you, quote, talking through every feeling you have endlessly exaggerates your feelings. It makes them bigger. You linger on something that might have passed if you just kept quiet about it. Instead, we would make everything really big and talk about it for hours or days. And so after a while, they broke up because they're just emotionally couldn't take it anymore. Because they couldn't lie. He couldn't lie. He had been raised to not do it. And I say couldn't. He likely could have, but his radical honesty, that was just how he was raised. So today, he now lies. He actually does. He learned to politely lie, white lies.
Yeah.
pretending, things don't bother him. You say something and he just says it's fine when it's really not fine. But you're saying that to, again, grease the wheels of your social life.
Right.
And he says his life is now measurably better.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's because most of the lies we tell are pro-social. You might lie 15 times a day, but you might be doing it because you're like, hey, man, how are you? You look great. Doesn't matter if he looks great. Is that a lie? Doesn't matter.
You do, though. I meant it when I said
Thanks,
that
man.
earlier. When you're like, how you doing? And I was like, you look great.
So,
I know I brought it up unprompted.
That's so nice. I feel fine. I feel like, I'm not allowed to say fine. I feel okay. I feel like my head hurts a little bit. I'm a little hot. Need some water, I think.
I'm not equipped to deal with this honesty, actually.
So if it were impossible to lie, if you were flipping that switch, how do you imagine that would have gone?
Are you asking, like, the mechanism that would make it impossible, or just, like, the consequences?
I wondered if you had a mechanism, because I thought of a mechanism.
I imagined it would have to be, like, the man you introduced at the beginning of this segment, which would be some sort of brain issue, where, given all the extra cognitive effort and stress that you have to undergo to lie, something would prevent that in your brain.
Yeah. I was thinking you thought maybe as the future technologies start to come about.
Oh.
Like Google.
Yeah.
If you've used Google for your whole life, say 40 years you've used Google, 50 years, 60 years, it knows everything about you. It knows all your friends. It knows all your partners and family members. It probably knows more about you than they do because you've Googled every little medical thing that's happened to you, every feeling you might have had. Maybe you've Googled to see if it was normal.
Yeah. Or you've even got technology. You're wearing right now a watch that monitors your heart rate and your breathing and all these little bio indicators.
So if that was impossible to lie, it could be that technology gets us there. And it's already started. There was a woman in Pennsylvania who claimed sexual assault had happened to her. And the police looked up her Fitbit. And at the point in her story where she said she was asleep and at home, the Fitbit said she was up and about and not at home. And so they didn't believe that her sexual assault allegation was true. A man had a refrigerator fall on him at work. And the insurance company looked him up online and found pictures of him drinking and partying. So even though he'd been paid for disability, they denied him future coverage for more disability. And this was just because even though we're lying or not lying, partying, you can be disabled and also, have alcohol. Those are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
You can have been assaulted and also be up and around and maybe misremembered your story. Those are also not mutually exclusive. However, these technological things might make it impossible for us to lie in the future. But that, of course, assumes we have some arbiter of truth, right?
Yeah.
Because the more technology we have, the more confusing. There's no is blue the best color? Doesn't have an answer.
Right.
Fact checking only works so far. Could we make it impossible to lie? Yes, it could be done. However, it would detrimentally damage both our society and animal societies. It might be make the world a better place to live in some ways, but we'd have to, figure out different ways to adapt. Because otherwise, people would have to only ask questions if they really wanted the answers. Do I look fat in this? Yeah.
But you look great.
But you look great.
You still look really good.
Can you donate to the children today? Yes.
Yes, but I don't want to.
But I don't want to. I don't believe in your cause.
Yeah.
It would, we evolved it for a reason.
I think about all the time how it's always getting harder and harder to get away with murder, right? Mm-hmm. Theoretically. Once they invented in the 80s, PCR, right? Polymerase chain reaction that could amplify DNA strands. So it became pretty inexpensive and quick to just take a sample of DNA from a crime scene and amplify it until you could actually
sequence it.
Yeah. See what was present in the DNA and then match it possibly to a suspect. That changed so much. I always think of the John Mulaney joke where in the 50s, what did they even do, right? When somebody would knock on the detective's door and go, "Sir, we found the pool of the killer's blood at the crime scene." And the detective goes, gross. Anyway.
Go mop that up.
Back to my hunch, right? They have... John Mulaney's the one impression I can do.
I think most people can do. It's you just kind of bend.
How dare you,
get
sir?
Away from the mic a little, and then you just... Oh my God, I can't believe it.
Wow, you're really making me feel not special after being told how so many times that I can do a good John Mulaney.
You can.
Thank you.
They're not, again, not mutually exclusive. They weren't lying to you.
Okay.
So now, before we go on to your question, let's take a break and maybe hear a little bit from somebody who's not lying to you about how great their thing is. Julian, give me your best dinosaur roar.
Oh, God, an asteroid! It's horrible!
Wow, that was not where I expected that to go. We're popping in before the show to tell you about I Know Dino. It's a dinosaur podcast.
You know, we think of those dinosaurs being this thing that's been dead for tens of millions of years. Even so, studying dinosaurs can still teach us stuff that is relevant to the world today.
Yeah, like climate models to help us understand global warming.
Migration patterns of dinosaur lineages, they tell us about Earth's changing continents.
We can also study dinosaur diets, what plants lived then, and maybe what animals and how they interact.
And, this is super cool, many dinosaur injuries, paleopathologies, they're the first known occurrences of diseases.
And they talk about all this kind of stuff on I Know Dino. It comes out every week with new dinosaur stories that you're not going to hear anywhere else. Like, I hadn't heard of a lot of these, which is pretty cool.
You can find I Know Dino on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts are. And if you found us, you can probably find them. Go check them out.
And we're back. Thanks for listening to That's Absurd, Please Elaborate, the podcast where we answer silly questions with well-researched, in quotes, answers.
Yes, researched answers.
Julian, your question. Where did this question come from?
This question, apparently, according to our show's spreadsheet where we keep track of questions, was submitted by ChatGPT.
That's right. I went to an AI and I looked for ridiculous and silly questions just to see what it might come up with, mainly because this is only the third or fourth episode, and we really want you, the audience, to submit silly questions to us.
Yes.
And tell us where you got them and why you thought of them.
And I picked it because I think it's a fairly common silly question, and maybe a lot of people already know the answer, but I just love it, and I also want to help the robot learn. If it's got this question, let me shepherd you, so when the robot takes over, it remembers me.
You're on its side.
Yeah, as the nice guy.
We'll tell it how you felt later.
The question is, can fish drown?
Great question.
I think everybody's wondered it at some point, right?
Yeah, what is drowning?
That's okay. Webster's defines to suffocate by submersion, especially in water. Oxford's dictionary defines it as die through submersion in an inhalation of water. So, the answer then is yes and no, respectively, depending on which dictionary you use to look up drowning.
So, I could drown but not drown.
You could
it depending
on fish can drown, but if as they're dying, if they're like, "Oh, how do I describe this experience?" and they pull up Webster's dictionary, they would be like, "I'm drowning." And if they pulled up Oxford's, they would be like, "It's not that." And then they'd run out of time to find the right word.
Because they would die.
Assumably. Yeah.
I mean, that would be a great loss for humanity and just if a reading fish that could not only hold a dictionary, but read the words within.
Can all fish read? If not, what are they in school for?
Oh, God.
Yeah, you walked right into that one. That was easy. Oh, Chewy. I thought you were going to see it coming a mile away.
I did not.
I thought that was so easy.
That was awful.
Okay, so let's take the Webster's defines definition and say, yes, in fact, fish can drown. And I'm still going to say that they can drown because, okay, it's dying by suffocating in a fluid. They say, especially in water. But if you took a fish and threw it in, a big vat of olive oil, that would be drowning.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, true.
That'd be bad for the fish. Okay, but they can also, just in their environment, drown. And the reason for this is because of how fish breathe. So, basic biology 101, right? We and fish almost many living things, unless they're anaerobic, we use oxygen to produce our energy in our cells, right?
Right.
The mighty mitochondria,
the powerhouse of the cell.
Yeah, I know that tune. I don't know how to do my taxes, but I know that song, right? So in a process of cellular respiration, the final step, because there's like different phases, there's glycolysis, there's the citric acid cycle, and then you get the electron transport chain. And the electron transport chain is the money maker in terms of making energy, right? Like electrons get donated to these little proton pumps, and the proton pumps move protons across a membrane. And on that side of the membrane, there's more of them. So the protons, just because nature doesn't like things being not in equilibrium, the protons all want to go back to the side that they came from. And they can only do it by going through this little, basically like a water wheel or a turnstile type thing called ATP synthase. And when they go through ATP synthase, it makes ATP. ATP is, like they say in your Bio 101 class, right? It's like the cell's energy currency. It's adenosine triphosphate. So it's just...
I love it.
Yeah, adenosine.
Can't get enough of it.
Which is, by the way, it's like basically one of your base pairs in your DNA, the A of ATGC, right? With 3 phosphates attached to it, right? A phosphate is like a phosphorus and 4 oxygens. And so your cells use these by basically snapping off one of those phosphates. And when that happens, energy is released and it powers all the different things going on in your cell so you can, stay alive.
Love that for us.
So the last electron acceptor in this electron transport chain is oxygen. So at the end of that whole cycle, the electrons go to an O2 molecule, right? And the O2, it's only an O2 molecule because the oxygens are sharing electrons with each other, right? And they're like, okay, we'll, have joint custody of these, and then
little oxygens, and they're like,
Mama, Dada,
yeah, we'll be fulfilled, right? But
neutral.
then when they get electrons at the end of this chain, they're like, we don't need each other anymore. We got our own electrons. So they split, right? And then what
happens to the little electrons?
Well, so the electrons, don't worry, they get a playmate soon.
Oh.
The electrons that are added to the oxygen, they've got a negative charge now. You've got oxygen ions. And then you've got all these protons coming back in through the pump, right?
Coming out the turnstile.
The protons, they got a positive charge. The oxygens got the extra electrons. And they're like, you know what? How about me and my other hot proton friend get together with this oxygen atom and we make H2O? Because proton's just a hydrogen nucleus, right?
Yeah.
It's just a hydrogen ion.
Yeah, it's just hydrogen without its electron.
Right. So the end result of the whole process here in the electron transport chain is we've used it to make a bunch of ATP, which again, I guess is a phosphate threesome. And then, because it takes two ADP
the
with 2 phosphates.
The universe is so sexy.
It's all trying to tell us. It's a common theme in this episode. All right. So, and then you've got oxygen molecules, O2 becomes 2 H2O molecules.
Right.
Right.
So we've gone through this whole process where we've turned things into energy that we've used and then releasing water.
Right. And we need oxygen in order to complete that. If we don't have oxygen, then this very important last electron receptor isn't there to kind of make sure the whole process keeps going, and we quickly burn through all of our ATP, and then our cells start dying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
it's
great.
bad.
Not great.
It's bad. This is actually how some poisons work. Like cyanide blocks that last step in the electron transport chain. It keeps oxygen from getting those electrons, and it gums up all the works, and the whole electron transport chain can't function, and, the end result is death. So I guess a good question would be, does taking cyanide count as suffocation? But that's for another episode.
What?
Right? If you think about
it. We're going to have to look into it.
Okay, so...
Because that's absurd. I want to know more.
Okay. We can turn oxygen, we all naturally are turning oxygen into H2O by this process of cell respiration. We don't do it the other way around, and neither do fish. Now, you might be like me. I assumed there's oxygen in H2O.
Yeah.
Fish live in it.
That's
the
what I thought.
gills, through some funky hocus pocus, are taking that
Yeah.
O and separating it from those H's and using it in this process.
That's not what's happening.
Wrong.
What?
It's not happening
Honestly,
that way.
What I'm learning is, one, I need to learn more about fish.
Yeah, it's true. We all could use some more ichthyology.
Yeah, just in general. But like, wow, what?
Yeah.
Okay, what's happening?
Okay, so fish are actually breathing in O2 molecules that are quote unquote dissolved in water. Like it's mixed in among the H2O, right? The way that we get oxygen in general, for the most part, in our atmosphere and in water is through plants.
Yeah.
Because photosynthesis can take H2O and basically break those electrons off and convert it back into O2.
Yeah.
Right? It uses the energy from light to oxidize the H2O, to remove the electrons, and then it basically goes back into being protons and O2.
Right.
But you need light-excited pigments like chlorophyll in order to do that. And obviously, we don't have it. Fish don't have it. Plants have that. So fish have to breathe the oxygen that's just dissolved in water. And there is very, very, very little oxygen in water, right? Like here on the surface, the atmosphere is about 21% oxygen, right?
Right.
Which means,
and we're technically filtering that oxygen out of our own air.
Yeah.
Because it's mostly nitrogen. And
yeah.
we like breathe it in and we're like, okay, I just want the oxygen.
Yeah.
And everything else goes away.
And we breathe in the nitrogen and we don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
It's just nitrogen. It's just hanging out. It's fine. It's doing its own thing.
No big deal. Inert.
Nitrogen is really, really difficult to separate because it's N2 molecules. And so that's why we need nitrogen fixers in the soil to break it apart. But that's a whole other conversation.
Another episode.
Whole other thing.
Jeez.
Really fascinating stuff.
Super neat.
But no, we take in oxygen from the air, and our atmosphere is about 21% oxygen, which translates to about 210,000 parts per million, right? That's 21%. In water, do you want to guess how many oxygen molecules there are parts per million?
I mean, I'm going to guess less, but like, I don't know, 5, 8, 10? 5.
10 total, because in air, it's 210,000
I was thinking like
per million.
5%, but it's got to be less because if the ocean was 5% oxygen dissolved, that seems like a lot.
That would be 50,000 parts per million, right?
So let's say 5,000.
It's 2.
Wah!
Not 2,000. 2.
Oh!
2 to 8 parts per million.
2?
Yeah.
2.
Yeah, it turns out there's not a lot of oxygen underwater.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do the fish find it?
So, parts of fish metabolism make it so they don't need as much oxygen, right? Like we're warm-blooded, which is great because we've got a lot of extra oxygen to use, and we can just,
literally burning it to keep us warm.
Literally just burn it off, just like running. It's like you've got tons of gasoline in the tank, and you're like, yeah, I'll just sit here and warm up the engine on a cold day. I don't care.
Wish people could see that you're like dancing. You're so excited. You're like,
I'm really
I'm just burning it off. I'm burning it off.
Just sitting in your garage, just revving the engine.
Don't do that, though.
That's do that.
Keep the garage door open and well ventilated.
And shut the engine off, please.
Do people, you think in the future, this is a sidebar, people are going to like, with their EVs, you can't really like rev the engine.
Right. So just like turn on
They put a button that goes, wow,
wow, wow. No, you could just like run electricity through some resistors and generate heat that way. You don't need to like run the motor.
But not the noise. You're at a stoplight and you see it and you're like, hey.
But it would drastically, I guess this is a good comparison because it would really dramatically shorten your range in an electric car. But with a gas-powered car, the heat's just a byproduct.
Yeah.
And then you just vent that through your
turn the heat on.
Cabin.
That's how we used to heat my Volkswagen van. In the winter, you just turn the heat on full blast. In the summer, because the van would overheat. Like the engine would overheat. You're
removing heat from the engine area. Yeah. Fun life hacks that won't be relevant in 30 years.
It might not even be relevant now. Anyway.
Okay, so back to fish. Let me find my fish notes. Fish have to pull oxygen out of the water. And they don't need as much because a lot of them are not warm-blooded like we are. So that's not an extra energy sink that they have to, you take in more oxygen for. But they do it by filtering that water over their gills, which is duh.
Yeah.
So their gills are just basically very thin, fine, feather-like, blood vessels that have a big surface area, so they make contact with a lot of water. And as the water moves over their gills, they just naturally exchange the gas. Yeah.
They're like grabbing oxygen out of the water.
Just naturally, because, like, again, a lot of this is how nature always seems to want to reestablish equilibrium. oxygen goes into their blood cells that are deoxygenated, and CO2 comes out of their bloodstream. If there is a lack of that dissolved oxygen, fish will suffocate underwater.
Whoa.
Yeah. So by the Oxford definition, that's not drowning.
Yeah.
But by Webster's, it is.
Oh.
Yeah, because they say just to suffocate, particularly in water.
Yeah.
Oxford's is like, no, you've got to be like inhaling the water, and fish don't do that.
Yeah, they don't technically inhale.
Yeah.
I mean, you could maybe make an argument that their gills are their version of inhaling, but it depends how pedantic your audience is.
Yeah, what wolf are you going to feed?
That's right.
Are you going to feed the pedantic wolf or the come on wolf?
For obviously, I'm going to be in the come on.
Come on. Well, and there are lungfish.
Yeah, true.
But so, yeah.
They're just, by their existence, they're inhaling, I think. Is that your argument?
But I think I don't think they have to worry about it because they still have like the. Yeah. You know what? I should look it up because I didn't look it up if lungfish still have gills. But I assume lungfish have gills.
I assume they do too.
There's also other fish that have a labyrinth organ. Yeah, and it's named so because it's got like these maze-like bony structures that stay always like separated, so they can just go up to the surface and they can gulp air and take it in that way. Yeah,
and they like hold on to it.
And then it absorbs into their blood the way that air passing over their gills does too. Because the issue fish have when you take them out of water is their delicate feathery gills collapse on top of each other, and now they're not making any contact with the oxygen,
even though there's a lot of it.
Them. Yeah, but they can't actually get enough into their bloodstream to stay alive, so they suffocate out here on land.
Also, when you're playing Marco Polo, if someone says fish out of water, you lose.
Yeah,
so
that's cheating.
You don't want that.
That's cheating.
Yeah.
But labyrinth fish, because the structures inside that labyrinth actually keep those blood vessels like separate and not folded over onto each other and touching each other, they can breathe air directly from the surface, and they can survive very briefly out of water.
That's cool. That's really cool.
So, what can cause oxygen levels to drop in water?
That would be my next question. I was going to say, is that like a region? Is that... Because I do remember having fish, now that you mention it, when I was a kid, you had to have the little bubbler going all the time. And if it turned off, no oxygen was being, I assume, added to the water.
Yeah, if you have one thing that can do it, too many fish, right? There's not a lot of oxygen to go around. Everything in there is using oxygen to stay alive, and if you have too many of those things, they're all gonna use up all the oxygen, and the fish drown.
Ooh.
Yeah, horrible way to go. You can also, if your water is too warm, because warm water holds less oxygen, it can drop below that 2 parts per million threshold. And
climate change.
Oh no! Yeah, there's that. There's a lot of problems with climate change and warming water. It also contributes to ocean acidification.
True.
Which is bad for shellfish because it like literally thins and eats away their shells. That's a whole other episode. God. Climate change bad.
Climate change bad.
Climate change bad.
Climate change bad.
But like you mentioned, if your water in your fish tank is stagnant, then there's no air mixing with the surface, at least not fast enough, right? There's always an exchange of gases at the surface. But if you agitate the surface, like if your filter is pouring water in and kind of mixing it up, or if you've got a bubbler, then you actually have oxygen mixing with that water. If it's just that flat, serene surface, you don't get enough oxygen mixed in, and your fish can suffocate.
Are you telling me that Finding Nemo is like a near-miss tragedy? When they throw a rock in and they stop the thing that's bubbling air and like circulating the water, and they're like, it'll make the tank really gross.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it could also kill you.
Yeah. Here's speaking of, because their plan was to make a lot of algae, so
which
dentists
also
would have to clean the tank,
which also consume, right?
Yes. So another source of deoxygenated water could be an algal bloom.
Wow. So this was like a really risky endeavor.
Yeah,
the more you know about it.
They almost all suffocated.
Wow. They really wanted to get out of there.
I know. Good
I don't
thing
think
that dentist was on it and cleaned that tank immediately.
I don't think that they really imparted to the child fish in this scenario the dangers of this plan.
Although they did have the volcano bubbler, right? That shark bait
True.
had to go through.
Yeah, that's
that
true. So
dentist,
that might have
he really set his tank up well.
He did.
And so
he clearly cared about his fish.
Yeah. Way to go, P. Sherman,
Wallaby
42
Way.
Wallaby Way.
In Sydney.
Sydney, yeah.
In Melbourne.
Good job.
Just get it wrong enough that people comment.
It was P. Sherman.
Yeah, 42 Wallaby Way.
Dr. Sherman.
Melbourne.
So, algae, you'd think, oh, great, algae, they photosynthesize, so they'll add oxygen. And
that's what
You're right for a time. Here's some issues, though. Say you've got algae that's a species that's, planktonic and just floating at the top, right? And then it covers the whole surface, and then none of the plants underneath can get any light and make oxygen. That could be a problem. Or if the plants in general are in the dark, they'll also consume oxygen, because plants, they undergo photosynthesis and they make oxygen, but that's to power their own cellular respiration, where they need oxygen and glucose to make ATP, and their byproduct is CO2, just like us. So no light, the algae and the other plants could actually consume all the oxygen in the tank. And then finally, there's the issue of, maybe it's not a problem at first until the algae dies. And then you get bacteria that consume this dead plant matter, and the bacteria burn through all of the oxygen because they also need it.
Jeez.
So this is a big problem with algal blooms from eutrophication, where we've got nitrogen-based fertilizers that run off because, there's all this nitrogen that plants need to grow that's available just right away. And normally, we mentioned it earlier, it has to go, your plants have to get nitrogen from these nitrogen fixers in the soil, and they do it very slowly, but it stays there in the soil more firmly. If you have this nitrogen-based fertilizer, it runs off really easily in the wastewater, into ponds and streams and bodies of water, and the algae just goes nuts because it's got all this nitrogen all of a sudden, and it can grow like crazy, and then it dies.
Yeah.
And then all the fish end up suffocating.
Drowning.
Yeah, it's a problem.
So can fish drown? Yeah.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, they can.
Wow.
Now, this also led me to a sidebar thoughty question.
Oh, I love that.
And that is, do fish drink water?
Do they? Are they thirsty?
Do they? It depends.
Oh.
Yeah, it depends on whether they are saltwater or freshwater fish.
Right. If they're saltwater fish and they drink water, wouldn't they get dehydrated?
No, you've actually got it wrong. It's the opposite.
Oh, I like that.
It's the opposite. So freshwater fish, because the inside of their body has more, solutes in it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You're going to talk about equilibrium again.
I am going to talk about equilibrium again. Yes. Freshwater fish, they've got more solutes, right? And water, because of that whole equilibrium thing, right? The osmosis happens when water from an area where there's low solute concentration moves to an area of high solute concentration across a membrane, because, again, nature and
balance
things, they always seem to try and establish an equilibrium, right? So freshwater fish, because the internal contents of their body are for lack of a better word, saltier, let's say, water just naturally moves into their body through their gills. So they don't need to actually gulp in water and process it. Saltwater fish, though, live in an environment where outside their body, there's more solute. And so the water inside their body wants to get out. So they actually have to gulp salt water, and then they have to excrete the excess salt through their gills. And by the way, my source for this was McGill University, and I thought that was appropriate.
The Harvard of Canada, eh?
McGill. So I trust them with any information on fish, and I think you should too. But yes, to answer your question, do fish drown? They can. As a matter of fact, I also thought, if you throw a fish into a vat of oil, I still would think that definitely constitutes drowning by any definition. But in their own natural environment, if you consider just suffocating underwater drowning, yes, fish can drown, and saltwater fish drink water.
Wow. I don't know about you. I learned a lot today.
Me too.
This was really cool. I learned lying is probably okay and maybe important. Also, at the top of this, I lied before. It wasn't
me?
It wasn't Dumbledore.
Dang it!
It was Immanuel Kant.
Oh.
Who said a lie is a crime of man against his own person.
I was really racking my brain for when that would come up in the books, and I was like, I can see it?
Right, because I had an AI rewrite it in the style of Albus Dumbledore.
I see.
But it didn't matter that I lied. It helped set up the story, and it actually made the end of the story better, too.
I love that. Nice job.
You're
Bravo.
welcome. Julian, any final thoughts, any final thoughties to share?
Yes. Lungfish do, in fact, have gills.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you all for listening. You can submit questions to us on our website, which is that'sabsurdpod.com. You can also go to our social medias, and you can subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. So thank you so much for listening. This is That's Absurd. Please elaborate. Every week we answer a silly question from you or from each other, and sometimes we have a guest. That's Absurd, Please Elaborate is produced and hosted by me, Trace Dominguez, and Julian Huguet. Our producer-editor is Kyle Sisk, and the executive producer is also me, Trace Dominguez.